Morning, everyone. We're going to continue our orc talk. So we've done kind of a broad overview, and then we focused a little bit on characters. And so I've been making lists for the past couple days, and it's actually pretty freaking hard to make an orc list. So I think there's a lot of interesting choices to make throughout the list. And I think some of them it's similar to warriors as well. Probably definitely more interesting choices to make in orcs, and some of that's because I haven't played them before. So you see a lot of things, and you see it from the context of orc versus orc, right? So that's probably one quote unquote problem, that takes time in games is when you're making an orc list or when I'm making an orc list, I say, oh, I want this cowboy versus this cowboy, or I want trolls versus Nashers, or I want my core to be this, and I want fanatics. And a lot of it is like inter army comparisons, sort of like when you compare a chosen chariot to a forsaken one, or something like that, something of roughly equal points, or you compare 6 knights to or 5 knights to 3 Feldraks, right? These inter comparisons, and then you really got to expand on that and say, well, what's good in the meta, what's good versus the armies out there. And honestly, until you play a lot of games and try to get a feel for the army, you it's probably not worth thinking overly about what enemies are out there and what you're going to face. I mean, it's definitely important, but right away, if you have a couple options of picking, good things, just pick the good things and get the models on the board and explore and see what works and doesn't. So just so for Blitz, I'm taking orcs, and I don't have a list yet. Now, I did set myself a couple rules for this event, and I'm trying not to break them. Um, Despite when I'm making a list, and I'll show you some example list building stuff that I was doing. Um, Despite my inclination to be like, oh, this could be better. Um, so some of the big decision points I've come across, characters, I don't want to get too into them because we've already talked about my what I like for characters is um, Shamanism versus Thaumaturgy Master. Now there are other ways to do it. You can take both, but I feel like that has been a contention of do you want a Goblin Thaumaturgy guy or do you want an Orc Shamanism guy? And this will lead to issues in list building because you have to think about where you're going to put them. Where are they going to be? Are they safe there? Do you have to buy a whole unit just to be a bunker? Do you actually want to buy a whole unit just to be a bunker? If you have an orc shaman, he could have crown autocracy and be your leadership 9 general. Or are you going to have a warlord that is your general? But if you have a warlord and he's on a boar and he has omen of apocalypse, do you want the shaman to be the general anyway, so that the leadership bubble is still within your little pack and not riding off into the sunset? Do you want your BSB to be an orc so it's in the savage orcs? Do you want to take a crown of the cavern king so your BSB has 18-inch range and he can vanguard a unit, which will then means you need to take fanatics, and then how many fanatics do you take? And do you take marching banner on them? And then, what cowboy do you want? Do you want it to be Omen Apocalypse? Well, maybe you don't want him, and you take a spider hero. And so, oh, the little spider hero guy is great because you took Crowning of the Cavern King, so he can Vanguard too, so you get extra Vanguard usage, and blah blah blah. And all of a sudden, you're looking for synergies, and you're trying to build everything perfectly so that it all works together as this puzzle. And then you're like, I don't know what to do anymore. And then the other one, okay, so that was a big one. That was a stream of consciousness because that happened a lot when I was building lists. So magic is a big one. You can even go adepts on chariots. Do you want to just go single mage? Do you want to go double mage? I don't want double mage in my first event. Um, you know, I think I'm definitely going to put like 1,700 points in heroes, at least, like almost max heroes. That's one thing I'm definitely going to do. Scoring. How are you going to score? I probably want 4 scoring units. I find I mean, there was the guy, the French orc player from ETC in 2019 that took 2, and he only lost like 1 game, I think, and that seems really risky. That seems like not enough. Um, where are you going to get those scoring units from? How are they 3 going to come from core? You going to have a special? Blah blah. Another big contentious point is shooting. Um, Moreover, war machines. So orcs have some pretty good war machines. They have really cheap spear chuckers, which are skewers and 90 points each, and they have catapults, which can be get launchers or normal catapults. Get launchers are a little more expensive, but you're a little more reliable given that they're 5+ rollable at long range to do D3+1 strength 5 hits AP4, which is pretty nice versus a lot of armies out there. So orc shooting is interesting because I don't think there is a consensus on you really need it or you don't really need it. And it seems like the consensus is, and Thomas kind of said this, was when you're building an orc list, your list looks better if you don't have shooting. Like, you feel better. You're like, I didn't put 300, 400 points in shooting. That might not do anything. But when you're pairing against orcs, your matrix always looks worse if the orcs have shooting because you're scared. Right? So, like, 4 bolt throwers are, like, kind of like a good representation of, on one hand, they're scary as shit to play against because they could hit at any time. But when you truly do the math, especially because of cover and long range, they don't actually average doing that many wounds. Now, if you have like dragons and stuff, it's super scary. But like on the average army, like the thing is really the cover and stuff like that. Right? Giant models obviously don't get cover behind you, but if they're in a woods, if they're behind a wall, not a wall, I meant like impassable, and it's -2 to shoot because of hard cover, and all of a sudden your skewers hit on 6s or 5s. I mean, they're 4 at best. So, it's an interesting. Versus warriors, they're pretty good to have ballistas. I'm not gonna lie, but some armies it just feels worthless, like 300 points of uselessness. But I'm probably not gonna go shooting. I think I told myself I'm not gonna go shooting in my first list, just to see how it feels. But I can see, depending on the setup, if you go if you're not going to go as aggressive, even though you can go aggressive with shooting, is 2 splatters, 2 skewers, or just 4 skewers is just kind of like this sit there and be annoying type shooting phase. Like 4 skewers is the same as 2 Great Green Idols, or 1 Great Green Idol, right? So which one's better? Who knows? It covers a lot of the board. I don't know. I don't want shooting, but it seems to be a contentious point where people are like, it's too random, I don't like it. But then no one wants to play against it because it's scary. And that happens a lot in Warhammer, to be completely honest, where, there's situations where it's 60-40 to one person and neither person want to take the risk because it's just not enough. I think shooting's like that. When you're using it, it doesn't do anything because you actually think about having to hit on 5s and 6s. And when you're against it, you say, well, it could do 12 wounds to me and one-shot my dragon, right? So I think for this tournament, I said I was going to do no shooting. No war machines. So that's out. So, and I never actually decided. On the master thing, on the mages, I decided on shamanism. I want to try shamanism. I haven't played the lore before. Thaumaturgy, I've had spells, and I've played enough against Thom that it's alright. You can't. I mean, we all get it. You cast Breath Weapon on some single models, you throw Comets, you throw Wrath and Hands of Heavens, and you have a great spell and Smite. You pretty much know what you're getting with Thom. At least I do, because I've played against it so much. Shamanism I haven't played against a lot, and I really like the idea of, all the buffs. It's great buffs, to be fair. +1 strength and toughness. Break the Spirit's great. Orc Hereditary is great. I mean, you could really... your magic race would be Break, Hereditary, Buff, and then Totemic Summon, which is a great spell versus some armies. Maybe you need a 5th spell in Heirloom, but... I mean, I've seen people just take 4 Shamanism spells and just go at it, right? Just go kill people. And it has good defensive ones, too, honestly. The Chilling Howl is good versus with shooting and stuff like that. Anyway, I want a Shamanism mage for this tournament. What else do we say? In core, there's a lot of potential polarizing things. I think it's very common that savage orcs are the best orcs. Or at least of core orcs, if you're going between common and feral. Maybe common if you're going for a bunker, just because it doesn't have to frenzy. Of course, it can panic in that case, but feral from a fighting perspective just feel better. Another people are either sold or not sold on Fanatics. I know some people like big Force Goblin units because they're poison and they have spears, and I think that's pretty good. I'm not going to use that myself, just because I don't really want it. I think Mad Gits are a very interesting army choice. I think they're popular now. I just think they're annoying to play against. It's kind of one of those things that, similar to shooting, right? Your opponent has to respect it, right? I was talking about the shooting real quick. If you take 4 Skewerers, yeah, people can hide behind walls, or not walls, impassables with their big models, and make it hard cover in 6s, but they have to do it. Well, they have to respect it at least, or they're going to get shot on 4s. While if you don't have the shooting, they're maybe more willing to come out. They don't have to hide. Like, forcing somebody to be annoyed by hiding or deploying far away from Fanatics, or like, there's value in that in itself. Similar to how MR, like, sometimes it feels like it doesn't do anything, but it's doing something because people just aren't casting at you, right? Like, people make decisions based off the fact that you have a ward save, or the fact that you have MR, or something like, or stuff like that. So the effect may not be as obvious because of those conditions. I like Fanatics. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have at least a unit with 2 of them in my army. I feel like there are a lot of cool things you can... I mean, not super cool. I mean, the obvious one is to, like, run up and just throw Fanatics through somebody's army, right? And if you have the Vanguard and March banner, there's always the threat that it could happen. And honestly, if you get close enough and you throw Fanatics through, it could be 66 Strength 5. And that's a lot. And I mean, the unit itself, yeah, sure, it doesn't fight, but it's a 45 models that are going to be steadfast for a good bit with shield, so they have parry. I mean, it seems pretty good. Nets are interesting, but 90 points for a huge unit of nets for -1 strength, I don't know if I like it myself, personally. But, and maybe the sweet spot is 30 man units and 2 Fanatics. And maybe not even taking Relentless Banner. I'm not 100% on that. Like, if you go 30 with 2, it's cheap enough. It's like 300 some points, where, like, it can almost be like a defensive posture. You don't have to do the Vanguard in somebody's face and throw them out first turn, right? That was probably the crazy part about that French list from ETC, was one of the units that he scored with was 30 Goblins with 2 Fanatics. So it's like, well, you clearly can't just run it up and let it die, because that's one of your scoring. So, how did you use the Fanatics in that case? And, honestly, Fanatics, I think a lot of the use comes from not just running through and throwing it through their big models. It's like throwing it in front of their units. It's very obnoxious to do, because they have to run over it and they take more hits. That's honestly why. And, wounds are wounds. I mean, you're paying 120 points to have somebody land on, 60 points for 2d6 strength 5 is not horrible, right? And they're annoying. I mean, and if they hit multiple units, then they're even more annoying. So I definitely think I want Mad Gits. I think they're one of the units in Orcs that they're very unique to Orcs, obviously, in how they work, and they're very obnoxious, especially for armies like Warriors and stuff like that, which I think are super popular. So I want to try them and see if there's anything I can learn from them. So I'm kind of making my list in my head, as you can sound. And a lot of this commentary comes from me having made lists recently. Things I haven't included. Trolls are one that, like, you just wish they were scoring. I just wish they were scoring. I know why they're not, kind of, but they really, like, they fill that slot in special where you take them and they're cool, and they're blocky, but you're like, oh, I wish they just scored. And I've heard, I've been talking to a lot of people about Orcs from all different countries, and people who play Orcs or play against Orcs and stuff like that. And it's crazy a number of opinions. Like one of the most opinions I've gotten about is like the Gargantual guy. So the Gargantual Goblin King. I've had people say that Gargantulas are one of the top monsters in the game, top 3. I've had people say you can't take the character because you don't want challenged out. I've had people say you take the character version because the extra strength AP 10 attacks are amazing, and it's just really good because he's now leadership 8 stubborn. You don't need the general for him. I've had people say the spider doesn't solve any problems. This was an interesting take on it. They said, what does the spider do for orcs that other units don't do? It has all the downsides of a monster. It has a huge base. It doesn't solve any problems. Like, it's not super high strength. Orcs already have a lot of attacks. Like, right? You're like, oh, he has 8 strength, 5 attacks. Well, I mean, so do 5 Gnashers, right? Honestly, other than stomps, 5 Gnashers outfight the spider in a weird way. If you know what I mean, though, like as far as like just a raw number of high strength attacks, Gnashers are pretty much better in that case. Of course, they're not as fast and all this kind of stuff. So, I like I said, I've heard people who are all over the board about the Gargantula spider guy. I think I'm gonna use him though, because I did like him in the beginning. And so those are some of the rules I've had for my list, and I want some chariots probably. And it's interesting for me because I'm starting to narrow down on a list that I want to try, and you know I've done all this thinking and I should take this and come. And honestly, what you should do is just get it on the board because it doesn't matter. That my list is going to look completely different in a month of playing orcs if I keep playing them, right? I mean, we've talked about the evolution of my warriors list over time. My, you know, the list I played at the end of CoronaCon evolved into the Ocho list. Was it the Ocho? Cinco? What was the one before? Social distancing. My social distancing list had like a dragon, and then the Ocho said, I'm going to take, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then it just evolved, right, over time. And it's almost weird because when I made my dragon version of my list, I thought that was the shit, and I loved this and that. And then it's just interesting how you kind of you go through different options, and you come back to ones maybe you didn't think about, you thought you had before, and now you like again or you don't like. And I can imagine orcs are extremely similar. And you know what? They'll probably always give. I think they're going to be an army that always gives this kind of analysis paralysis, no matter how good you are with them. Because at the end of the day, you have to choose between choices that seem really good, and you can only choose a couple of them. It's kind of like choosing Hellmaul versus Feldrak spam. I think Feldrak spam is probably the best thing now, or the Elders at least, given the meta and everything. But, I mean, there's still a legit, Hellmaul list out there, and there was a point where it's like, which one do I take? Do I take a Hellmaul? Do I not take a Hellmaul? And it's always there. It's always an option. It's always kind of racking on your brain. I think that's hard for me personally, to have, to always have different options, because all it takes is somebody liking a unit or thinking, oh, this is good in this meta. But for every unit you put in, you have to take something out, and that changes other matchups and how the army plays. Ideally, when you're good enough with an army, and I think it was Conrad who did this in a video I watched like a year ago, where you can basically say, all right, these are the things I like in this army. And I have to use warriors as an example because I don't know enough about orcs. You can say, all right, I know my army is going to have a herald, adept. Like if I was going to make an ETC list for warriors today, and ETC was tomorrow or a month from now, I would say, all right, I know I want a herald. I know I want an adept with a binding scroll. I don't know what lore I want yet. I want 2 Feldrak elders. I want 3 units in core. I want dogs. And then I want, that's it. Let's just say that. Flare unit. That's 3,000, like 3,300 points or so. Right? And then I would say, all right, I have 1,200 points left to spend. What do I want to spend it on? And then you could go through the matchups out there and say, well, what helps the, It's a little bit less. It's probably not as hard in Warriors because 3,300 points is a lot. And but let's just go with this example because you have about 13. You have about 1,200 points. It's 400, yeah, 1,200 points. And you could say, all right, well, I have my scoring covered. I have my magic covered. I could upgrade my magic if I want. I could add another scoring unit if I want. And you could like make a chart that says, here's my armies. Here's the choices to fill in these extra, whether it's Feldrakes or Forsaken One or Knights or something like that. And then you could just look at what's common in the meta and say, well, does this help me versus anything, right? Let's say Warriors have a really good matchup versus something. You don't want to put in a unit that just makes that matchup go from a green to a green. You want to put in something that makes, maybe helps another matchup or something like that. So there's some list analysis you could do where you kind of make a matrix of what's out there and build your list like I know I want these core pieces, and then what are the little additional ones and how do they help? But that's kind of further down the road. So there are some lists I've been messing with, and I'll show you where the struggle really lies in. So I pretty much want 2 Great Green Idols. I also said I wanted to at least play 1 idol in this tournament. And I pretty much want this Goblin King. And then I want a Shaman with Shamanism. So this is set pretty much, not the crown. This is set. I don't love this core. This is not the list I originally had, is it? No. So here's where it's getting troubled for me. The most trouble has been 1, this BSB and this guy right here. So I guess if you think about it from, why was this so big? Did I have 30 before? Maybe I had 30 with 2. And then no champ. With something. And I had like Banner Discipline or something. So 1 is getting your core to be low and pretty much equal points. The second is the synergies between the characters and what units you need with them, right? So really the options are, as I was saying, you could go this kind of character right here, which I like, or you can, let's just make the Warlord real quick. You could go a Pharaoh Orc Warlord on board with shield. I mean, there's other builds than Omen of Apocalypse, but let's just go with Omen for now. And he has light armor, and so this toughness 6 guy for 5'10". Right, so you can't fit these 2 together. Obviously, you're over points. If you have this guy, you can drop Crown of Autocracy, and you could say, all right, the Warlord is my general, right? And then you could drop this, for example. And so this is a pretty solid unit. And then you could, in this particular case, would you want this unit to have Banner Discipline because, and you got to go through the thinking. The rationale here is you want this to have Banner Discipline because your general's not always going to be near your block, and you don't want to have to take a damn panic check on it. And your Goblin, now if he's your general, the Binding Scroll guy, then you can probably get away without Banner Discipline because you'll be rerollable 9 on your bunker, right? And so you could do something like 2 extra guys here, for example, right? So like this could be your list, and you still have 50 points left. Min Core. This is a pretty good list, and you could actually, your Ed Bashers could change to like this or something, right? And you'd have 55 points left. Too bad it's not in Heroes, because you could take what is it called? Another Binding Scroll would be really good, because you only have the 1. And you can't even take, 30 points doesn't get you too much over here, right? MR maybe, but I don't know if it's worth it. Like, you could take MR on the big guy, which is pretty nice, I guess. But you already have a lot of big models to get magicked. And you have Binding Scrolls are just better. Like, this is one weird one where, like, oh, you're still... Like, he just comes in at a weird, like... This is, like, a weird amount. Because you also can't upgrade. So, like, the biggest thing is, like, do you want this guy with this chief? So, let's just take it back an example, right? If I have the spider guy, who's pretty good, then he has to be my general. Right? So, let's just go back to that version. Because the synergies here is, this cave goblin unit can be vanguarded and move crazily fast with this guy. And then... I could potentially have a spider hero that you saw before that could also be vanguarded along with this. So it's kind of like a double benefit. So this is the list that you just saw roughly on paper. No, it didn't have this many goblins. It was smaller than this. It basically took off 15 goblins. It said, all right, I'm paying a lot of points for, you know, do I want 3 fanatics or do I want 2 fanatics and just be a 30-man unit? I think that's a big question, but, you know, this is a little cheaper and it kind of fits better in core. But then this makes you take a banner in the orcs. I don't know. It's kind of like this feels like a bad... I don't like this unit. I just don't. But I don't want to put my damn... Like, so now you could make the argument that, oh, your orc shaman is cheap enough to go in the feral orcs and just survive there. And this could be something else, whether it's a mounted unit or whatnot. Because I want the 4 scoring. So, you know, and sure, these mounted Ed Bashers are here because of the Warlord. So he can go in them, and now he creates this nice bunker for him and something to give him ranks and charge with. I don't know. I don't know. This feels weird, this unit. But I guess it's scoring, and it's kind of like, is this core good? You know, is this banner Relentless worth it? Should, you know, but so the Crown of the Cavern King is nice. Not just, I don't take it just for the Vanguard. I actually don't take it for the Vanguard. I take it because I want an 18-inch BSB. Now, the argument that people could make is just make your Great Green Idol the BSB. It's 18 inches. You don't have to spend points on this damn hero, so you save about 25 points plus. So not only is it 125 points cheaper to make him the BSB, you don't need a bunker for him. Like, I actually haven't done, but then it makes the Great Green Idol worth a lot of points. So if you do, well, it's just right. So we'll wait to that version. So if you're sitting at this version with 55 points left, you can put whatever in you want. So this is like an okay version of it. You have, let's just look at the synergies real quick. So you have max heroes, you have a good cowboy, but he is your general, so that is a problem, potentially. You have a good orc hero, he has a unit to go in. He has a Goblin King go on his own. You have an orc shaman that you wanted. You have a Binding Scroll, which is nice. He can go in the 20 orcs and be banner disciplined because your BSB is going to be in there. So, perfect. Now you have your core. You have a nice unit of ferals that can go on its own and just be annoying. You have 30 goblins with 2 Maggots that can be vanguarded. And it has Banner Relentless, so for turn 1 you can do potential nice things. And maybe 2 Fanatics is enough. But you are spending 60 points to give it the Marching Banner, and we'll talk about that. But, you know, being able to run up here and then throw 2 Fanatics through an army potentially is really nice, or just throw it in front of people. You have 4 scoring. You have 2 Chariots, which I think are pretty nice. You have 2 chaff pieces, one being, I like the common goblins, at least they're a little more expensive, but, so I could see the other ones, the scuttle ones, especially because they scout and vanguard, which is pretty nice. But the normal ones are pretty nice too for holding back because they moved 18. And then you have 2 Great Green Idols. So, you know, on the board, it's not... Like, if you're on this map, like, how does it look, right? What is your plan here? where is this unit going? Is it going like behind a Great Green Idol, which is not? I should probably do my 1-inch rule a little bit. This guy can go in here because he has Strider, which is actually a really nice feature of that guy. And so, you want the 18-inch BSB because you have some key pieces like this or the Spider that don't need the general's leadership. They just need the BSB. Right? Really, in this army, what needs the general's leadership? Potentially these fanatics or these goblins. The chariots, they can use it. Leadership 9 is never going to be complained about, but they're single models and they can't panic on their own unless something obviously panics them. But they don't take like panic checks. So and for the frenzy checks here. So sure, the BSB helps this army, of course, but the general helps this army, of course, being leadership 9, but it's not like the end all be all of, you have banner and discipline on your one unit. So sure, like I said, there's checks you want to take, but it's not as reliant on the general as much as it is the BSB. So the BSB being 18 is nice. I'm making up a deployment. I have zero idea how I'm deploying this army. I don't know. Let's just make something up. It depends on so much, but right, you could start this here. You could put the BSB up here, and you could Vanguard him down here, and then Vanguard this up and move it up. But do you want that? It's to take full advantage of the vanguarding this. Do you want this guy? I like him. But then again, what I had before, where I had Crown of Autocracy, and I didn't have this Warlord, and I had the Goblin King version. I've gotten pretty good at making this guy because I've made him so many times in so many of my lists. But, I think this guy is a very strong hero. 1 upper rollable save, Hero's Heart. For his points, he's really good. And maybe this is a better option, right? Maybe this guy's just better for 375. He's 35 points less than the Orc guy. And he gets the Vanguard. So that's nice. And you could, if you really wanted, if you want to go up to what you were before, you could take 2 Binding Scrolls. Or in this particular list, you could take a Binding Scroll and you could take Heirloom. And you could say, I want 5 spells. And you could go like this. And that's not bad. And then you have 80 points left. And maybe now you're getting a little bit more out of your Vanguard. Because now, instead of this unit becomes, you probably make it the big unit and take away the champ. Right? So now you're something like this. And you could even, you could make the argument that you don't need banner discipline anymore because your leadership 9 guy is in there. But that doesn't get you much because it's 50 points, but it's all core points, and you're not going to make this unit huge because you don't have the points to. Do you even have the points to do it? How does that look if you do it? I'm just making shit up now. Right? If you make this bigger, and then you remove this and this. You could sit at this and you're at exact points. Now you're 70 points, 60 points over in core, and you might say to yourself, that's fine. I have everything I want. I don't want to drop below 30 orcs. I think the Mad Gits are enough, and I'm happy with this unit right here being my bunker. Now, ideally, this would probably be 5 Boar Boys to get you not 70 points over core. But maybe that's a fallacy in my mind of if I was 70 points less on core, what would I get? I can't take anything on him. I can't take anything else on. He has 20 points left, but what are you going to get on him? Probably nothing. There's nothing really more to take on this guy, right? He has points left, but he has the 2 slots filled. This guy has the Binding Scroll. Really, what are you getting up here? No, I mean, yeah, I don't even know what you would get for these points. This list is pretty good, actually. This little change, because what this does is, it basically makes this the big ass unit that is more likely to vanguard up. You lose this strong Orc Lord in here, but you gain a Goblin hero who can now vanguard and be annoying, and your general stays back in this unit and just be himself. Um, that version is actually pretty good, probably, and you get an extra spell, which is kind of nice. I actually like this version now that I look at it on the board. This unit becomes a big bunker. Um, I think there's a lot of things you can do with. I mean, 3 Fanatics is obviously better than 2 in the sense of just it's more. The unit gets steadfast for longer. You have to be a little wary of it. But I really want the 18-inch BSB because the bubble is just so much bigger, obviously, and you can play wider and these benefit from BSB. This benefits from these 3 things are really good. They can be single models on their own, and they're really good with the BSB because they're minimized 8 leadership. Being rerollable is really nice. I like things like the Chariots. So the one thing nice about the Chariots is, these are all immune to psych single models, right? So the Chariots can kind of sit between them and be annoying. I mean, the only thing that panics in this list are the Chariots and these 2 blocks. Nothing else panics. Well, the little goblin. I didn't bring out the goblins. Yeah, I have 5 Wolf Riders in this list. I actually kind of like this list now that we're talking about it. Now, this is probably one of the better versions. I think you have to suck up and say, this is everything I want in core, and I'm willing to pay the extra 70 points because it's fine. There's nothing bad about this core. You can't, if you drop it, there's nothing you can drop that screams to me, what are you getting elsewhere, right? What are you upgrading elsewhere for 50? I mean, for 70 points, there's probably some stuff you could do out here. But maybe it's nitpicking at that point. Maybe it's just too small. And sure, maybe you can get something in here that would be kind of cool. But this is actually pretty good. I actually kind of like this list. It kind of has a nice synergy of... I like this synergy. If you're going to take the Crown of the Cavern King for the 18 inches, you might as well vanguard the biggest Fanatic unit you can. And then also have a hero that can vanguard as well. Yeah, that's a pretty good list. So, I mean, the other option you could think of would be, okay, I'm not going to take this. I'm going to take a BSB on my idol. All right? And it opens up some points up here. You don't get to Vanguard anymore, so maybe you have less incentive to take this huge unit, and you just say, okay, I'm going to take 30. And you could go even less, where you go this version of the unit, which I like as well. Cheap, 315. I wonder. That's not bad. That's not bad either. This core is not bad. Now, you don't have a bunker. But you don't have a BSB either. If you drop Crown of Autocracy, you have more play here. Haven't thought of this yet. But the problem is you need a Leadership 9 General now. And so if you drop Crown, you really need well, I was thinking of a fighty BSB, but that's worthless in this list because you have the BSB and the Great Green Idol. Do you need a Warlord? Can you even bring a Warlord on foot? Is he even good enough? I mean, the Crown of Command guy is too many. I mean, you have a little bit more points because you can drop this pretty easily, I'd say. So you're looking at 360 points in Heroes. It's not a lot. You could probably get... Is there any getting more? You can probably drop this and just say deal with the binding, just having the binding scroll. If you did this. So now you're sitting at 410 points in Heroes. I mean, sure, I guess you could get something that's okay. I know I've seen people really like... if you put him as Crown of Autocracy, he starts to get a lot of points. But if you just go like a bare minimum Destiny's Call paired weapon guy for like 2,890, like he's pretty good on his own. Oh my god, I'm going to be 1 point over. I'm 1 point away from having that item. That sucks. I mean, you could just go the item you had before. The Troll Ale Flask. Like, this is not... Oh, he has to be Savage if this is the case, too. Might as well be Savage. How many points I got left? Like, this is not bad either. This is an interesting option as well. You still have the 2 Cowboys. You lose the BSB. Becomes a Great Green Idol. And you get this Leadership 9, decently fighty Orc Warlord. The things I don't like about... And you get more Fanatics, technically. You have more. I think that's kind of the interesting part is not having the... And, you know, I've heard arguments to do things like... And now we're getting to random territory. So if you want to... If you want to stick with me while I contemplate stuff, sure, I'll keep recording. This would usually be something I do without recording anymore, but, you know, if you really want to start getting crazy and contemplating things, you can say, fuck feral orcs, right? You could say, fuck them, I don't need them. And you do this, and then you maybe turn this into chaff. You could take 8 Madgets. It's crazy that this is like almost min core. Like you just take 8 Madgets and be like, whatever, deal with it, bitches. Man, I'm only 5 points below. That's crazy. That's crazy that this is like almost legal to take to me. Oh, I dropped my chaff over here. Well, in this case, you don't even need this. Well, then you have nowhere for your heroes to go. Well, I've seen people do things like maybe you take special Iron Orcs. It feels weird to have a bunker of Iron Orcs. They're 305 points. Yeah, that feels weird. You don't need this. I mean, hell, in this case, you could go. You could do like a bunker here. Look at that min core. That's some min core for you. 4 scoring. Well, then you don't need this guy. And you don't need this. And then you go Crown. This feels weird because of this. I don't actually like this. I don't want to do it. How about that? I don't think I want my first list to have a BSB idol. Because I feel like it makes it... You can't play it the same way I want to play it. Yeah, I don't like that. I like this. Where am I lacking on points? My heroes? Oh, I took away the scoring because I said I didn't need it. Which makes it... That's an interesting thing as well, right? If you say, well, you need the Goblin hero back. Alright, I can get rid of this yet. Oh, no. I guess this is not far off the list I was making before because the core is still... I had 70 points over in core before, so this should come out to be like 70 points left after I have... Well, I took out the Boar Boy, so it gives me even more points. So only 400 some. I mean, this is blocky already. I don't know. I don't know what you're getting here that's like super special, I guess. I mean, you could do a lot of things at this point. You could like remove him. This is getting away from what I wanted to take originally, so this is probably not happening, but You could take the spider on its own. There's another nice Goblin King build that's like pretty good. Not the general. Yeah, what's the second build? The second build is shield. It's heroes. It's shield breaker. I think this guy would have the flask, but it doesn't matter. One of the two has the flask. And you have 200 points left. Fuck if I know. And this way, you could actually vanguard both heroes if you want. What am I missing here? Oh, I dropped the big ass hero. That's right. And I mean, if you didn't want the spider, yeah, I mean, sure, we can go on and on about the things you could get here. I don't like this build. I want the savage block. But yeah, I mean, that's the kind of the thought process, right? Wow, I can take cave goblins. I can, if I take the chief and I make it, I can vanguard multiple heroes. I actually like the one list I made. Damn, I actually really like that list I made that had this guy, had this. Oh, we're making it real quick because I forgot what it was. I want to be able to save it. It was this. Was it this? We're almost there, guys. We're doing it. Being over min core is always feels weird, but I really should do it more often because, or like just accept that it happens. Like, if it's better for your army, why not do it, right? If 70 points isn't a big, it, it happened in my orc army or my warriors army too. Is it this? And then I'm missing the boar boys. I like feral if they're like this. It's just musician and 10 of them. Nice cheap points, a lot of attacks. What did I have? Oh, I had heirloom. Oh, I even got heirloom in this list. Nice. So he had the binding. We're doing it, boys. We're doing it. Oh. Now that's a list. Man, that's a pretty good list, I think. On paper, it's a good list. It's not much different than the list I made last night. So, real quick, the difference between this and the list I made last night is this was a lord on a boar with Crown of Apocalypse. So I had 20 points more in heroes. So if you think of this guy's 375, so it's 135 points from the Apocalypse guy. 65 of that has to go into the heirloom. Or into the Crown of Autocracy, because I need it. Right? So 65 went there. So now we're looking at 135, 70 left. So I'm sitting at 70 points. I didn't have heirloom, so that's 20 points left. What else did I get for 20 points? And then I didn't have all these I didn't have all this core points. I forgot what was different, but it wasn't this list. Well, I'm not going to sit here and do it any longer. So this, I'm not saying I'm taking this to Blitz for all the people watching and want to counter me, but this might be the idea I take to Blitz. It's got 2 chaff, got 2 nice 3 monsters, 2 chariots, 4 scoring, pretty efficient scoring, got a cheap bunker, the general has 5 spells and he's not in the damn thing. 18-inch BSB. I can Vanguard 45 Cave Gnashers plus the Goblin King. Yeah, I kind of like this list. All right. Well, thanks for listening.